So as we close out quarter one, I wanted to get an inside view on what's really happening across the L&D landscape, the conversations and sort of challenges and themes that are shaping this year. And so for this week's Talent, Leadership and Skills Exchange, I am delighted that I have Carl Crisostomo, and he's the voice behind the hugely popular L&D Meet Ups newsletter. If you don't know his newsletter and you don't know his face, you're not getting out and about enough, because I barely recognise this man not wearing a tuxedo. Last time we saw each other was the Learning Awards, but he is at the heart of all industry events and practitioner conversations and has really got his finger on the pulse. So welcome, Carl. And as I said, I see you everywhere at lots of events. What's the overall mood that you think you're picking up as we're closing Q1 this year?
Yeah, and I have been to a lot of events. Actually, the other day I was totting up how many I've been to in Q1. I think it was around 12 to 13 events.
Pretty good.
Over the course of the quarter. So yeah, it's quite a lot. So I've spoken to a lot of people. I've listened to a lot of people. I've sipped tea. I've eaten some curly cheese sandwiches, and I've learned quite a lot along the way. And I think, to your question, the thing I'm seeing most at the moment, and the feeling I'm getting in the market, is that things seem to be warming up and becoming a little bit more optimistic. I think last year was a very hard year for L&D. We saw quite a few job losses. I've spoken to quite a number of people that have been between roles. But that seems to have changed. I think there's been a lot more jobs available on the market. And there's a lot more optimism in what's going on in the space. And I think one of the kind of key themes is that it keeps coming up. And it's been around for years, but people are really focusing on it and really taking it seriously, which is incredibly important, is the idea of reimagining how L&D delivers what it delivers.
Interesting. And so would you say that's one of your big themes? If you were to pick out the themes that you think you're hearing a lot in the rooms, would that reimagining L&D be one of them?
Yeah, I think it comes up a lot. I think it's a lot on the stage. A lot of the speakers are talking about it. And I've been on numerous roundtables where we've discussed it. And I've been on events that have been focused purely on that subject. I went recently to L&D Next, fantastic event, all around how to reimagine how L&D delivers. And it was a packed
Really?
room. It was really, really busy. So it was a great event, and all focused on that one subject area. It's something that's on everyone's lips right now.
And would you say that reimagining is about those strategic conversations that we were just chatting about before we started recording?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's aligning yourself to the business. I think David James came up with this lovely term, substance power, and that's what we've got at the moment. We like to talk about learning stuff, which is great, but we need to move to real power, and that's when we talk about business and the impact that we can have on that business.
Yeah, and avoiding being, I think he also talks about not being the order taker, doesn't he? Which is so easy to do and become very tactical. Okay, so in terms of the big things that you think are on people's lips, what would you say they are, the most common subjects you're hearing covered?
I think there are a number of things. I think we'll pick the obvious one, which is AI. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's in nearly every conversation, every talk, at every event in one way, shape or form. And I think one of the things which is really interesting in this space is that when it comes to AI and AI change and transformation, a lot of focus initially has been put on experimentation and starting small scale and rolling out, pilot projects. And there's been a lot of that going on. And some people have rolled out Copilot, for example, and seen how it's worked within the business, used it as a bit of an experiment. And so there's been a lot of that going on. But I think what we're now seeing is a shift and a focus as we try to scale those experiments and say, reimagine the way that we deliver customer service, for example. If we're going to do something that big, we're going to have to look at the people side of that change. And that's something that's beginning to fall onto the agenda. Now, whether L&D gets a chance in that is another question, but it's definitely an opportunity that's there for them.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely feel like organizations are moving now, aren't they, from what if we to right, we need to now. And actually how are we going to do that and how are we actually going to get the productivity gains and the savings and quantify it as well? Because as you said, there was a lot of experimentation playing around with it, but
Mm.
now people want to see results from it.
Yeah, I've put 500 people through a prompting course, but no one's really using it. And it's
Yeah.
because we're not really focused on the behavioral change that
Yes.
needs to happen to get people to go on that journey from being exposed to AI to actually using it in their job.
Yes, absolutely. And I guess it's that also it's like honing the skills of things like critical thinking and be able to evaluate the outputs and recognizing when actually we might not want to use the output, but being aware of that, isn't it, to start with as well?
Yeah, and igniting things like curiosity, because a
Mm.
curious mindset is a great mindset to have if you want to start playing around and actually embedding AI into your workflow.
100%. Okay, so you said starting with AI. What else
Mm.
have you got for me?
Yeah, so I've got one which I think is an interesting opportunity
Mm.
for L&D, and that's around change and transformation. So I've been going to a lot of change conferences. And this is all around change management. And I've been speaking to lots of change leaders. So
Mm.
people that are part of these huge change and transformation projects in organizations. And I've been asking them, when you roll out these programs, do you involve L&D? And everyone I've spoken to says no. If we want to communicate a change piece, then we go to our comms team and we use them.
Yeah.
And look, in some organizations, the comms team may be good at behavioral change,
Mm.
but usually a comms team is really about distribution. So
Mm.
may not be able to get that engagement and most importantly, make that behavioral change, which is needed in order to bring a new change on board in an organization.
It's interesting, isn't it? What do you think L&D leaders can do to be one of the first ports of call in that situation?
Yeah, I would start by just trying to build some relationship
Mm.
with the change organization and finding out what some of the problems are that
Mm.
they have when it comes to landing change.
Mm.
Is it around engagement? Is it because everyone just goes back to the way it was done before? It's
Mm.
the status quo bias, or these kind of things. So yeah, just really going on a bit of a discovery mission, build a
Yeah.
relationship, find out what some of the problems are, and see if L&D can plug some of those holes
Yeah.
and make it a three-way relationship, being L&D, change, and comms.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it'd be a really strong actual partnership, really, to help drive that change. Um, okay, one final thing that I wanted to ask you. So if you could give L&D leaders who are watching this like a piece of advice, based on what you've heard this year and what you think they need to be considering as they go into the rest of 26, what would it be?
One bit of advice, go and have as many conversations as you can
Mm.
with leaders within the business. Find out where they hang out and
Mm.
maybe meet them there,
Mm.
or at least try and get into their circles, their channels, and start having conversations with them and find out what their problems are and see if you can align L&D to help fix or at least help solve some of those problems.
Love it. And I would add to that, sign up to the L&D Meet Ups newsletter with Carl. There we go.
Yes, and get
Brilliant.
out there, yeah, and go out there, meet your peers, see what's going on, and take some of your challenges and get other people to help you brainstorm them, come up with ideas that you can help then solve those challenges that you have.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Carl. And I look forward to seeing you at the next event we're both at.
Brilliant. Looking forward to it. See ya.